What is up, everyone? This is Tony Picks MMA with my second upload for this week. We're going to be putting in our predictions for Dillashaw versus Garbrandt, number 2. Cejudo versus Johnson, number 2. I'm super excited, guys. Let's get into these predictions. So kicking off the early Fight Pass prelims, we have Marlon Vera squaring off with Wuligi, the Beastmaster. Buren, this is a pretty well-rounded fight. Both of these guys have nearly identical records. They're both coming off of some losses. Both of these guys are BJJ fighters, whereas I'll give the wrestling advantage to Buren and the stand-up advantage to Vera. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give the edge in this one to Vera. I think he's going to take the win via either submission or decision. On to the next one. Moving on to the second fight of the early Fight Pass prelims, we have Danielle squaring off with Weili Zhang in her UFC debut. For those of you guys that haven't seen any of Zhang's previous fight, this girl is an animal. Whether it's on the feet or on the ground, she looks for the finish. Danielle, more of a stand-up fighter, does have solid stand-up. I don't really see her possessing knockout power or really threatening Zhang at all. Super stoked for Zhang's debut. Gonna keep this guy as quick and simple. I'm gonna give Zhang. I just think she's dominant everywhere the fight goes. Been super excited to wait for her UFC debut. I'm gonna give this fight to Weili Zhang via KO or decision. Squaring off in the final fight of the Fight Pass prelims, we have Perex squaring off with Jose Torres. Torres coming off of that self-inflicted knockout slam, really, of his previous opponent. His opponent kind of knocked himself out. Torres wasn't really winning that fight until the slam. Perex has been very impressive as of late. All around a great fighter. I'm going to give the edge to this one in Perex, you guys. I haven't really looked into too much of the early Fight Pass prelims, but I think Perex should take this fairly easily. Jose Torres doesn't have the best UFC experience. He hasn't impressed me in the UFC. Like I said, his only win is coming off kind of a self-inflicted KO from his opponent, whereas Perex has shown on the Contender Series he has finishing abilities, whether it's stand-up or submissions. He has a lot of fights for someone who's so young, so I'm just going to give the edge to this one to Perex via submission or decision. Moving on to the first fight of the TSN fight card, we have Sayles squaring up with Sheymon Moraes. This, to me, guys, is going to be a stand-up war. Both of these guys possess some serious power. Sheymon is coming off of his first loss to Zabit Magomedsharipov, who is an absolute animal, as you guys know. And Sayles is coming off of his KO win in the Contender Series. Sayles is training out of Alliance MMA, so he is training with some high-level guys, even though he doesn't have that UFC experience. Sheymon Moraes possesses 5 KOs. And 4 decision victories out of the 9 wins, whereas Sayles possesses 5 KOs or 6 KOs and 1 decision win. So I'm not too sure about the cardio of Sayles. He hasn't really been the distance. He's been the distance once a while ago, whereas Sheymon Moraes has been to the distance 4 times. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give the stand-up edge to Sheymon. He's had more experience in the UFC. He's fought Magomedsharipov. He lasted 3 rounds with him, although he did get submitted. I don't see Sayles being even close to a threat as Magomedsharipov. I'm going to give the edge to this one, Sheymon Moraes via KO or decision. Moving on to the second fight of the TSN card, we have Ricardo Ramos squaring off against Kang. This is going to be a pretty even fight. Both of these guys have a really good BJJ game. I'm going to give the stand-up edge to Ricardo Ramos. He's coming off a pretty sweet spinning elbow victory to, I believe, Ayman Zahabi. So that was a good fight. He does have 3 KO wins on his record, so he does possess power to put people away. Whereas Mr. Perfect from South Korea is more of a BJJ fighter, relies on the wrestling, doesn't really stand out in the stand-up. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give the edge to this one to Ricardo Ramos. I don't see him being threatened anywhere where the fight goes. I see him controlling it on the feet, being able to edge out Kang's wrestling, and just taking him out if it goes to the ground. Just more of a high-level fighter. Moving on to the next fight of the evening, we have Ricky Simón squaring off with Montel Quick Jackson. This is a pretty interesting fight. Montel Jackson coming off his third round KO in the Contender Series. Ricky Simón coming off of that controversial submission win at the end of the fight to Merab. I honestly, guys, I give the edge to Ricky Simón almost everywhere the fight goes. Maybe give this slight edge to Montel Jackson for power, but other than that, Ricky Simón is a brawler. He's got 10 straight wins. He's impressive everywhere the fight goes. He's a super good wrestler. He does have really polished BJJ, even though he doesn't have like many submissions by BJJ. And he does have some KO power. I see him being able to kind of rule out Montel Jackson's danger on the feet, take him down at will when he wants, and be able to submit him. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give it a confident pick to Ricky Simón via submission or decision. Kicking off the first fight of the main card, we got Thiago Santos squaring off with Kevin Holland. This fight was just recently put together. Kevin Holland coming off that unanimous decision win from the Contender Series. Thiago Santos coming off of his knockout loss of David Branch. He was the favorite in that fight. I personally was going for Branch. I thought his jiu-jitsu, if it went to the ground, was better, but he surprised everyone with that KO win. I see this being a stand-up battle. Thiago Santos having way more strength advantage. Obviously, the UFC history and the UFC experience in the favor of Thiago Santos. Kevin Holland making his UFC Octagon debut. I'm not too sure how his wrestling is. He didn't really showcase that against Will Santiago. If you guys caught that in the Contender Series, it was more of a stand-up battle. Fairly boring. Nothing really surprised me there. With that being said, I see this being more of a stand-up battle with Santos getting the edge in the striking. I'm going to give Santos the win via KO or decision. I just don't think Holland has enough tools yet to beat Santos. I think his wrestling is going to have to be more polished, and he's just going to have to gain some octagon experience under the bright lights, especially being on a main card for his first fight. Kicking off the second fight of the main card, we got Polyana Viana squaring off against JJ Alrich. This is going to be a pretty upfront matchup. You got JJ, who's looking to wrestle and get in the ground and pound, and Polyana Viana, who's looking to get that submission. She's a beast on the ground. She also has that KO power. This is going to be a pretty quick prediction, guys. I got Polyana Viana absolutely dominating this fight. I think this fight plays perfectly into her cards. It was unfortunate she was scheduled to fight Besh Correa, but Besh wasn't released to fight. I believe she got an eye injury following her Holly Holm fight, and even though she had doctor's clearance from Brazil, the medical clearance, doctors with the UFC did not release Besh to fight, so JJ stepped up, which is good on her, but I just don't see her having any ways of winning this fight. She does have high volume, and she does shoot for the takedown. I just don't see her standing a chance if it gets to the ground. Polyana is an absolute beast with her submissions, throws submissions off the back, has a beautiful guard. Her ground game's amazing. Her top game too. She does have power and length. With that being said, I'm going to give this to Polyana Viana, either via submission or unanimous decision. I just can't see JJ pulling off a win in this fight. In the next bout, we have Cub Swanson squaring off with Renato Moicano. It's a pretty interesting fight. You got the vet Cub Swanson squaring off with kind of the new kid on the block, Renato Moicano, who's breaking into the top 10. A lot of praise behind Renato Moicano, the BJJ black belt. He's an expert on the ground. Cub Swanson's been around for a while and all around good fighter, although if you had to pick out a flaw, it would be a submission game. He did get picked apart by Brian Ortega with those guillotines. He almost got him in the first round, but then ended up submitting him in the second, made some adjustments to lock that up. So if Cub doesn't be careful, he will get submitted by Renato Moicano. In terms of the stand-up, I'm going to give the power edge and KO edge to Swanson. I think he's more fluent on the feet, and he does mix in his leg kicks very well. In terms of the wrestling, also, I'm going to give the slight edge to Swanson. I'm giving him the edge because I do think he's stronger, although technically I do think Moicano has that technical advantage with the grappling and the takedowns. And obviously on the ground, we're going to have to give the edge in submissions to Renato Moicano. It's going to be interesting to see how this fight plays out. There's 3 rounds, so I want to see if Cub is going to try to point fight, win the first, win the second, and then kind of ease into the third. See if Moicano presses the pace and looks for that submission early. It all really depends on their fight plan. I think if Cub comes in early, tries to KO Moicano, that's his best chance of winning. The longer the fight goes on, I think Moicano will be able to press Cub, put him in a dangerous position, eventually take him to the ground and submit him. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give the edge to Moicano. I feel like the only real chance Cub has in this would be to KO early. I think if he tries to outpoint him throughout the 3 rounds, he'll end up getting taken down at some point. And if the fight goes to the ground, I really do think he's in trouble. With that being said, guys, I got Moicano taking this by submission or split decision. Moving on to the co-main event, we got Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson squaring off with Henry Horrible Haircuts Cejudo in a rematch from their first bout 2 years ago, in which Johnson finished Cejudo in the first. Cejudo has, of course, came back with 2 pretty impressive wins over Sergio Pettis and Wilson Reyes. DJ, of course, defended that title against Ray Borg with that crazy, in my mind, one of the greatest submissions I've seen. That flying armbar transition from that wrestling throw. It's a beautiful finish. It's going to be an incredibly hard fight for Cejudo. I think he's going to have to fight the perfect fight just to contend with DJ. Cejudo, of course, has that Olympic quality wrestling and has showed a lot of improvements in the standing department. He's kind of showcased that karate stance, that front leg, that wide front leg up front. Against Wilson Hayes, he got that beautiful KO finish. Most of his KOs most of his knockouts and finishes have been by TKO. Normally grounded pound, he's able to take people down and really deliver strong blows from the top. We've seen that against Pettis. He delivered some tough shots from the top position. Against a guy like Demetrius Johnson, that's going to be incredibly hard. DJ matches the wrestling of Cejudo, I find. And the reason I say this, maybe not technically wrestling for wrestling, Johnson matches Cejudo, but if you include the striking that Johnson includes with his wrestling and the transition the transitions that he includes in his wrestling, where he's able to take the back so quickly, go for a throw and go for a submission, I think it's equal in the wrestling department. Cejudo, if you were to put him in a wrestling match with Johnson, I'd give him the edge. But because you got the striking, the submissions, and everything included, I got to even that out. In terms of the stand-up, I'm going to give the power edge to Cejudo. I think he does have the power edge in terms of one shot, KO power. Whereas DJ would have to put a combination together, rock someone, and then get the finish. I don't think he has that one-shot power. On the ground, DJ is a wizard. That's why I think it's a hard fight for Cejudo. I think Cejudo is going to have to rely on the wrestling and striking game. He's going to have to mix it in really well. He's going to have to use the striking to get in, and then that wrestling to edge out some points with the takedowns, and then possibly get some ground and pound on DJ. I think, like I said, I think he has to have the perfect fight just to edge out a win. I think he's going to have to use his striking, get in, take DJ down, get some points off the takedowns, and try to control the fight. Demetrius Johnson just has so many tools. He has so many ways of ending this fight. I see him having the edge in the stand-up. He's a lot quicker, a lot more fluent with his kicks and his punches. The way he's able to change levels with his strikes and takedowns. And like I said, of course, when it gets to the ground, I give the edge to Johnson. He's just a wizard on the ground. He really is a wizard everywhere. Technically sound, everywhere everywhere where the fight goes. He really is just a master. In my mind, one of the greatest champions, if not the greatest champion ever in the UFC history. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give the fight to Johnson via submission or decision. I just think it's too hard for Cejudo. I haven't seen someone in the division yet that can match Johnson on all of his levels, if not pose any threats. Moving on to the main event of the evening, we got TJ, the champ, Dillashaw, squaring off with number 1 ranked Cody No Love Garbrandt in their rematch. Of course, guys, their rematch was a banger. Garbrandt had Dillashaw rocked at the end of the first. Dillashaw was able to go back to his corner, clear those cobwebs in his brain, make the adjustments with Dwayne Bang, come back, mix in some kicks, and essentially end up getting the finish on Garbrandt. Garbrandt, on the other hand, is kind of not using the excuse, but is saying that that last fight wasn't him at his best because he was coming off of the couch. And what he means by this is he didn't have a full camp where he had time to train and get everything done. He was kind of coming off of that stem cell surgery, or not surgery, or kind of treatment that he had on his lower back. So I'm excited to see the shape that he comes in, because Garbrandt's mentality is he had Dillashaw where he wanted him at the end of the first, just he didn't come out in the second as fit as he would have liked. So I'm going to see how that plays as a mental barrier for Garbrandt, knowing he is more fit and he's had the full year and the full time to get a proper fight camp in, to get himself trained and properly fit for the fight. Dillashaw, on the other hand, must be coming into this fight a lot more confident, of course. He took Garbrandt's best shot. He was rocked, but he came back, made the adjustments, and got the finish. Both of these guys are stand-up fighters. I don't think this fight is going to go to the ground. I can see Dillashaw possibly trying to mix in some shots like he does with his striking. We've seen it against John Lineker. He's got that amazing, there's the foot movement. He kind of throws some shots, throws his hands, shuffles his feet, and changes levels and get the takedown so quick. Garbrandt does have that wrestling pedigree, though, where he will be able to defend those takedowns. And, of course, they've trained together. So just training with one another, they know each other's bodies, they know each other's weaknesses and strengths. Although they've changed up their game and they train and they include tricks in the arsenal, once you kind of train with someone on a regular basis, you just get comfortable with that opponent. With that being said, guys, this in my mind is a relative toss-up. I think if it goes to the later rounds, I'm going to give the advantage to Dillashaw. I think throughout 5 rounds, he's going to be able to keep a higher pace, use his kicks, use his shots, and include his wrestling and takedowns in throughout 5 rounds. On the other hand, you have Garbrandt, who has bombs in his hands. He can make people go night-night early in the first. So it is a toss-up. I'm going to put my bet on Cody Garbrandt via KO. And the reason I'm saying this, guys, is simply because I want a fucking trilogy, man. I want one more fight between these two guys to really settle the beef. I want to see Cody Garbrandt put him out and see that third fight. I think it'd be a phenomenal trilogy. With that being said, I got Garbrandt taking it by KO. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed my picks. Whoa. I also wanted to finish off this video with the Sammy Lights Out Siegs prediction of the week. Sammy Lights Out is taking Dillashaw by unanimous decision. Have a good one, guys.